They're doing the wave.
I'd like to call to order the normal business meeting of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District for July 13th, 2017. If you have an agenda, the agenda has been tweaked a little bit to accommodate a couple of things. So today we are going to begin by swearing in our two new board members that were elected to the board in the May election. With that, I'm going to have each of them read their oath of office. If we could start with Kathy Kramer, please.
I, Kathleen Kramer, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Oregon and the laws thereof, and will faithfully and honorably demean myself in the office of Devils Lake Water Improvement District Director, Position 4, four-year term. Term expires 6/30/2021, to which I have been elected to do the best of my ability.
Mr. Steve Brown.
I, Steve Brown, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the Constitution of the State of Oregon and the laws thereof, and will faithfully and honorably demean myself in the office of Devils Lake Water Improvement District Director, Position Number 5, four-year term, expires 6/30/2021, to which I have been elected to the best of my ability.
Congratulations and welcome, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item with our adjusted agenda will be the election of the new board officers for this coming year. First of all, do I have a nomination for chairman?
Yes, I'd like to nominate Kent Norris.
I second.
Do we have any other? Given that we have no other nominations, can we have a vote then? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Okay. I will agree to be chairman for this next year. Next officer to be elected will be vice chairman. Do I hear any nominations for vice chairman?
I nominate Tina French.
I'll second.
Do we have any other nominations? Okay. All in favor of having Tina vice chairman for another year, signify by saying aye.
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 I accept.
Okay, great. Lastly, secretary treasurer. Do I hear any nominations for secretary treasurer?
I would like to nominate Steve Brown as the new treasurer.
I'll second that.
Any other nominations? Okay. All in favor of Steve Brown for secretary treasurer, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Steve?
I accept. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Steve, with that, you'll have to do some getting together with Bill in order to change over everything, how we do that, and he'll explain that to you.
Days of work.
Days of work.
That's great.
Better be quick. I'm leaving on vacation tomorrow at 3.
Excuse me?
All right.
We have lots of reports that are due. Sorry.
Okay. With that, as we've had with the discussion, let's have a roll call for board members. Steve, do you want to do your, I guess we're all here, right?
Yes.
Okay, I think we're
No
all here.
excuses. We're all here.
All present and accounted for, okay? Next, we have consent agenda. Do I hear a movement to accept the consent agenda as stated?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda is accepted. Next, comments from citizens on agenda or non-agenda items. I don't know if we had a sign-up sheet or not. Okay, would anybody in the audience who hasn't assigned, Mitch Moore, would you like to make a presentation?
Mitchell Moore, 2929 Northeast Loop Drive, here tonight. Just a comment from the Devils Lake Neighborhood Association. It's been a while since I've been to a meeting. I missed them, but I do want to start out by saying and really showing the appreciation that I have for these meetings being on video. I am able to watch them when I wasn't able to be here. In fact, I was even able to participate. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to make it to the budget hearing, but I was able to participate between the video and a few text messages in the meeting from afar. So kudos to the man behind the glass curtain back there, because it's really appreciated. And also just wanted to kind of report on July 3rd was kind of our big event recently with the boat parade led by Sheriff Barry Brewster, which with lights and sirens. It's kind of fun, gets everybody's attention. We had oodles of people observing from the shore, and I best guess around 50 boats in the boat parade. Everybody was having a great time, all decorated up for the 4th or the 3rd or both. And then, of course, topped off by our fireworks display. We funded it this year again. It's not too late to contribute if you're out there and you're feeling guilty that you didn't. DLakeOregon.com, and you can donate. We're raising money again for next year. So our intent is to go for a 5th annual and do it again next year. We added a little bit to the show. I think people noticed, and a little bit more pizzazz, and everybody seemed to like it. It's a lot of fun to watch that. So the Neighborhood Association continues to be active in the DLWID committees, and I want to definitely put a shout out to all the people participating in that, because it seems to be working very well. And then finally, I wanted to share with you kind of a strange event that happened on the lake this morning, only because I'm very proud of her. But so my wife was at home this morning, and a man came down the street, very distraught, with a leash in his hand, and very, very upset. And apparently, Dana came out to see what was wrong, and he was visibly upset, and his dog had gone off in Water Avenue and started swimming and would not come back, was headed across the lake or up the lake or whatever, but not coming back to his owner. And he was very upset, and he wanted to know if he could go into our property and I guess to be closer to it and go down. And he literally jumped in the lake and started trying to swim to his dog, and very quickly became overcome by not making that. Came back, and Dana said, "I have a kayak." She got him a kayak and a life jacket. And he started out and got to his dog, but then turned around and yelled, "Call 911." So she's saying, "Are you all right?" And he's like, "No, I think I'm having a heart attack." And is the dog all right? No, the dog's all right. He had the dog. So Dana leaped and grabbed another kayak. She said it was feather light, and threw it in the lake, got a life jacket, and got out there with a rope and got to him. And definitely he was in distress, and yelled to somebody at shore, who did call 911. And she paddled him back to Water Avenue while the sirens were coming, and they met the paramedics about the same time as they got to the boat ramp. So to my wife, Wonder Woman, I think that's a pretty impressive feat, but unusual for Devil's Lake. So I just thought I'd like to share that with you. So
Very good.
and thank you for letting me share this great neighborhood.
One more comment I wanted to make. I love the new Devils Lake Neighborhood Association signs.
Thank you.
Those
Yes,
are
yes,
awesome.
We have created a sign, a Devils Lake Neighborhood Association, sort of show, your faith in the neighborhood and become involved. It's available, again, at our website. They're just $10, that's what it costs, and thanks to the Lincoln City Liquor Outlet, who is our business partner, who is, because I can't be here to deliver them to people, they've agreed. You go online, you pay your fee, and you get a receipt, and go on down, and they'll hand you a sign and a sticker, and you can probably display them. And
I'd be happy to have some in our office too, if that would help.
we could do that.
Two ends of
It's very easy. Actually,
Trash
very-
and booze, and we should cover everybody, right?
That's right. Thanks for reminding me of that, yeah. So anybody who
Yeah, they
wants
look
that,
great.
please just go to dlakeoregon.com.
One of the things I'd like to say, and I think we need to bring it up as a board too, is, and I think I brought it up previously, but I think in the future, especially looking toward our budget for next year, the board ought to contribute something to the fireworks. We ought to put that as a budget item to, I think it's a great use of public funds, and it promotes the lake. We get a lot of people here, and I think in the future, as we look toward next year, that we ought to, as a board, decide how much we can contribute to the fireworks, because right now it's funded completely by the goodness of
By homeowners.
homeowners around the lake, but I think it's certainly is right up our alley for something that we could put some money in for.
Yeah. Well, and we have a line item for that already, right? I mean, wouldn't that come under events?
For next year, we
Talk
ought to
about
really,
that.
so as we grow closer to that next year's event, if the neighborhood association would come to us when they start fundraising, then we can go ahead and do that. Mitch, I think that would be something that would be appropriate.
I'll remember that.
Right? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mitch, for all your work.
Thanks,
We
Mitch.
appreciate it.
Are there any other people in the audience that'd like to comment on agenda or non-agenda items before we get started? Okay. Given that there's no other people that wish to comment, let's go ahead and go with our committee briefings, and our sewer committee is up first, if we have a spokesperson for them.
On the wrong side of the table.
Can't get away from these meetings, can you, Brian?
Yeah, the view here is almost as good as the audience. My name is Brian Green, 1490 Northeast Lake Drive in Lincoln City, Oregon. I'm the chairman of the sewer committee, and I'll deliver a report. And this is kind of an effort to advise the general public, a lot of which you already know, so bear with me for a minute. The letters and the survey cards went out on Friday, June 30th, and I think most of them were received on Monday, July 1. At least that's when I got mine. There are 579 letters that went out, and we got them out to all the residents in each tax map, which included some areas outside of the existing proposed project area, which was our intention, because the boundaries aren't fixed in stone, and we wanted to get that information to some people outside who might be interested in joining, and et cetera. So, and it was really pretty efficiently done. Quality printing was a great help. They printed the letters and the cards and the envelopes, and we didn't have to use labels. Between my wife and John LaBelle, they figured out a way to get the addresses directly to the envelopes without having to do labels, and so and then quality printing stuffed and sealed and did all that for about $500. The Chamber of Commerce lent me their, the DLWID is a member, so they allow members to use their bulk mail stamp And, it just took me about less than an hour to be, 579 times. And took me to the post office, and it was done. So shout outs to the chamber, to Quality Printing, to my wife Leslie and to you folks for finally getting that done. And the bulk mailing stamp saved us about 40% of what we would have had otherwise pay. So that was nice. I think the total cost between Quality Printing at around $500 and the mailing I think was $173. So we're going to come in at about $700, which just for the time and effort and the work and what we got done seems pretty decent to me. We got. I checked today at the DLWID office. We had 77 of the survey cards returned, and or I guess it was 78. There was a very pronounced and decisive, wait for it, split right down the middle in terms of favorable, unfavorable, and about there were 32 cards that I could call favorable, 31 that were unfavorable, and 15 that were neutral in the sense they were either like a yes and a no to the questions, or there were no comments, or comments that kind of comments that sought more information but were pretty non-committal. So it really kind of split down the middle. And the interesting thing was in the 32 favorable responses, question number one, which was, remember, do you think the septic tank and drain field on your property will ever have to be replaced? Of the 32 people who responded favorably overall, 30 of those people said yes. Of the question, the second question, these are the favorables. Second question, would you consider replacing your septic system with sewer if you were satisfied the sewer makes financial sense for you? 32 out of 32 said yes. On the flip side, of the 31 unfavorables, the question number one was answered no 21 times, and there was 29 of 32 people thought they would never have to replace their septic system. That's what they said, and then 31 out of 32 said that they would not consider replacing their septic systems, even if they were satisfied that it made financial sense to them. So So you can, draw your own conclusions from those responses. In terms of what's coming up in our immediate future, there's an infrastructure finance workshop, which that looks absolutely wonderful, that Mitch alerted everybody to. And that's July 20th in Silverton. Actually, there's one, if you want to go to Ontario, there's one July 18th. But one July 20th in Silverton. Unfortunately, I have to go to a family wedding in Louisville, and there's no way I can miss that or would want to miss it. So I can't go, but hopefully we'll get some attendance from folks in our area interested in this. It's an opportunity to not just get information, but actually make contacts with the people who will be asking to look at providing financing for us, to actually meet them. And so it could be really...
I'm hoping that I'll be able to go. So
Pardon?
I just heard about it today, but I am thinking that I will be able to go to that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good. So there's that, and And I think I have a registration form, and I think I'll file it and register just to see what kind of information. I'll tell them I'm not going to go, so I don't take a place. But or maybe I could tell them that you're going to go, Kathy, and so we will take a place then. All right. In fact, I'll put your name on it if you don't mind.
Don't mind.
Okay. All right. Good. And then we have a sewer workshop coming up, as the letter said, on July 29th at 10:30 a.m. at Oregon Coast Community College in room 108, where we've met before. And so, you know, I'm going to be thinking, and everybody else should be thinking, I think, about, you know, how to structure and handle that. You know, obviously, I think it's a first time to gather impressions. And but I think also we, you know, and want to have some open-ended discussions. It's probably going to be kind of a big picture discussion, but you know, we want to be able to provide as much information as possible at this early stage and see what input people have, and you know, and what are the most important questions to answer, and you know, what info we can provide. And all that being said, we probably have to remind ourselves not to get too far ahead of ourselves, because, you know, and just admit that there's a lot that we don't know yet. But so, you know, hopefully you'll all be thinking about that, and you'll be there for that. That is obviously happens before your next board meeting. So
Brian, who's setting up the format for that? Is it your committee that's going to give us a format for that meeting?
We have our sewer committee meeting tomorrow afternoon at 4:30, and that's on the agenda. And so, yeah, so we'll talk about that and try to come up with something. I mean, I imagine just by its very nature, it's going to have to be pretty loosey-goosey. I mean, I was thinking that maybe that I would give some kind of a introduction to maybe what we've done so far, that there's a committee, what the committee has done, and maybe kind of figure out some kind of listing of what we think our major issues are, and I mean, that's my idea of how to proceed so far, and that's about the limit of what I've got together so far. So
how much time are you allocating for the workshop?
This, you know, whatever it takes. You know, my experience is that meetings that start going along longer than an hour and a half, things really slow down, things get redundant. You get to 2 hours. And people just run out of steam. So I would imagine it would last somewhere between 1.5 and maybe 2.5 hours. But we don't have any deadline or any time we have to be out of the room, or so. I think go as long as people want it to go. So oh, and one more thing. Our committee membership is six members, and 6 actual members now, and conveniently we have room for 7, and we need a board liaison to our committee. I think all of our committee charters say that there will be a board liaison. We have room for one, so I would urge you to talk amongst yourselves and come up with a board liaison for our committee. And if you do that tonight, then hopefully that person can make our meeting tomorrow. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks a lot,
Thanks,
Brian.
Brian.
for all you
I
did.
just, while we're on this subject, these are the cards that have been returned, and it's really helpful for me to read these, and I'm sure it was you. And so 78 represents about a 13% return. And so if you are out there and have one of these cards sitting in your mail pile, please make an effort to get it to us as soon as possible, because, I mean, this to me is super helpful in making a decision on where we're going to go. If we see a strong leaning one way or the other, I would certainly think that affects our decisions. So I would just encourage everybody of the 500 people that have not returned it to return it.
Yeah. And I don't know if there's 500. I mean, there's some that own 2 lots,
Sure, I mean,
you know, and there's some that, there were some duplicates. And now I don't know if that's because they own 2 lots or what, but so.
I mean, if we got a 30% return, that would be great. For any survey, a 30% return on a survey is considered really successful. So, I mean, that's just basically getting in another 75 or so. So that would help us, I think, get a pretty good cross-section of what's going on up there.
Yeah, I'm not sure about this, but I think that even a 13% return is statistically significant.
Yeah,
It doesn't sound like it's enough, but I think actually
it might possibly be. I know 30%
would be really nice.
is considered successful, so.
The other thing I'd also say is I read through a lot of the cards this afternoon too, and the comments are what are the most important things, just answering yes or no. The comments give us a lot more information on what your thinking is and the reasons why. And so those comments are taken seriously and very important.
And virtually all of the negatives were comments regarding cost. I mean, I went through and actually looked for that, and
Sure.
one way or another, you could interpret 90+% of those comments to be objections to the cost.
And I think probably the one that stood out to me the most is, and which I think is a hurdle we're going to have to overcome, is the fear of annexation.
Yeah. But although there was only one card that actually
There
mentioned
was only one, but just talking to people, I know that is probably one of the biggest weighing things over people's heads of, if we agree to this, are we going to end up like Rhodes End?
Right. And that's something we should certainly be addressing, starting with our workshop
Right.
on the 29th.
I think the workshop's a great starting point for getting out the right information and the reasoning behind it. And I think that those that choose to attend, which I hope there will be many, will be able to walk away from that with a better understanding of why we are looking at sewering. So, thank you.
Josh, just to make one comment also, are we going to be able to consolidate all of this on a spreadsheet so that we can look up all the comments, the answers yes, no? Doesn't have to be by address or anything.
I can
Just-
have that done.
Yeah,
You
just.
got it.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
have
think
an
it's good
intern
to
working in my
have it
office that is
available also
a
for the
spreadsheet
public.
guru.
For the
Yeah,
public.
that's exactly what I was thinking, is that I was going to ask Josh if I could take these in and put them in a spreadsheet so that we have one sheet at the end of this with all the comments and.
Thanks, Brian.
Yeah, and if that works for you, Tina, I will wait as more
I
of them
know
keep
you've got
coming
a
in
lot
every
going on,
day.
and
So,
this is simple clerical work that I
hey,
can
if
get
you've
done
got the
easily.
gear, then I appreciate it. Like I said, I'll bring any more of them that come in over
Great.
your way, drop them off at your office if that sounds good.
Yep, terrific.
Thank you.
The other thing that was brought up by Brian, which I thought about too, is that as we have 2 new board members, and I know Kathy's been involved with the SOS Water Quality Committee. Steve, do you want to be a part of the sewering committee? Is that of interest
I
to
can't
you?
make that commitment, especially in the short term.
Mm-hmm.
You can or can't?
I cannot.
Okay, all right.
I talked to Brian today, and I told him that I would be willing to do that because we kind of talked about this a few months ago when we talked about the septic inspection committee possibly joining the sewer committee, and so I think it makes sense that I do that if you guys are cool with that.
I'm great.
I would be happy to be the board rep for that.
Thank you, yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Do we have any?
Do we need a motion for that?
Nah. I don't-
Nah, okay.
I think we're.
Thanks, Brian.
I think we're a part of that.
What time is the meeting tomorrow?
4:30.
Got it. Thank you.
Also, do we have another report from the Special Projects and Events Committee? I know that Mitch came up and gave a report from the Neighborhood Association. I know Mark's not here today, Was there any other information we were going to pass out?
Well, I can give a brief report, since I'm on that committee. On June 29th, we had met with Lila Bradley here at City Hall with regards to the next cleanup around Devil's Lake, and we received a very positive response for the West Devil's Lake Road cleanup. And so that cleanup will be announced by the Special Projects Committee as soon as we firm up a date. So, got good response from Lila, though, open-armed.
Great. Okay, I guess save our shoreline and water quality monitoring.
Hi, I'm Mary Ellen Ridge, Chairman of the SOS Water Quality Monitoring Committee. We met today at 3:30 at OCCC and talked about our July 11th E. coli result, which is as expected. Thompson Creek was hot and Rock Creek was green, but had the next highest number, and just what we expect. So.
And let me
Sure.
let me make this clear that those are the tributaries that you're talking
Yes.
about.
Oh,
not-
yeah, those aren't the new
Not in the
testing
lake.
sites
Those
that
aren't
we,
the
These are
testing
the
sites.
outside.
Thank
So
you.
Thompson Creek at the culvert, it's clean by the time we get, it's green. By
Into the
time-
lake.
Into the lake, by the time we get to the buoy out in front of Kathy's property. And Rock Creek is at the East Devils Lake Road Bridge, and then when we take it out into the lake, it's clean.
okay, terrific.
Yeah, sorry.
Thanks for
We
clarifying.
always talk about Thompson Creek.
Right, I know, but I know that we
Yeah.
just, we agreed that we were going to start testing the actual lake and reporting.
And we're doing both.
Right.
We-
I think it's great to have the historical data from where we've always tested, but I think it's important to let people know that the lake is.
And Kent pointed out at our meeting that just because it's E. coli, it's not necessarily harmful E. coli. You want to expand on that?
Well, I think most people, they hear the term E. coli and they think, oh, I'm going to get sick from it. But the reality is there's many different strains of E. coli, and only a handful make people sick. And so...
Or
peop-
pets.
Right. And so it's just people need to be aware. E. coli, there's a wide range of different types of E. coli, and not all of them make you sick, but a few do.
So we reviewed that, and that was the Monday and Tuesday of this week. And the reason I'm so knowledgeable on that is that our intern is at Opal Creek, and so Kathy and I did the testing this week, and it was kind of fun because we haven't been doing it all summer. Then we talked about the Thompson Creek project and decided Bill was taking that in hand, and we are willing to help you test if you need
So
to test.
what I've come up with so far in regards to that is joining up with Josh and Tom, and all three of us are going to present a solution or a workshop basically with the county sanitarian, Quentin, and hopefully they can either assist or lead us to a clearer solution to what the cause is, or should we be that alarmed. But we'd like to make it very well known within the county that at these levels are not a health hazard, unless they are. So we're not really prepared to move forward with our lab qualifications to really pinpoint the severity of these levels.
Okay.
Whether it be, yeah, it's E. coli related, but is it, like Kent was relating to, is it the red E. coli or is it green E. coli? You know,
Right.
public health hazard or not?
And
So
is
that's
this
what we
meeting
want
going
to
be
clarify.
public, or is it just going to be one-on-one with,
It would be one-on-one until we get more factual data.
okay. But a workshop might not be a bad idea.
Well, yeah, and that was another question I was going to ask you was, are the levels of E. coli basically the same at Thompson versus Rocky Creek?
No. Rock Creek is much lower. It's in the green range, but it's just our next higher number.
Okay.
Yeah, but Thompson Creek is as great as we can get the number. Yeah. And it has been that routinely. And that's the culvert, not in the lake.
Right.
So, right. Okay.
Thank you.
So the Thompson Creek, we are aware of it, and we're going to bring it to someone's attention.
And is that graph that you guys are posting, is that just a annual graph posted on the sign as well as the weekly?
I don't think we post an annual graph. We usually keep it up as a summary at the end of the year of all the results.
So, but yeah, we have a weekly
Yeah.
readout.
Yes, yes. And along those lines, I'll get to it quickly in the website report, but now once you collect on the big yellow box that says water quality on the front page, you'll go directly to those current sampling results week by week. So,
Oh, cool.
So the county
good,
have
usually.
access to that
yeah,
as well?
anybody can find them now. They're
And
very
Josh, are those reported by Wednesday or by Tuesday afternoon? Test Monday, Tuesday.
The tests are usually up by Thursday at the latest.
Okay.
So that's usually where we go. So depending on weather, because you've got to get around to the parks, et cetera.
Right.
So
Right. Okay.
I noticed on July 11th that D River, which typically goes up this time of year also, was starting to raise a bit. And for the public, it's usually as the water level starts to go down, we see more and more sand exposed down there with the birds, seagulls on there. And typically, as the water level goes down, we see less flushing through the river, and I think that's what we see every year.
And that's what we saw this week. Right.
Josh, on the website, it says, if you click on the water quality, the first thing is that it says as DLWID has come to the end of its summertime weekly monitoring season.
Yeah,
Okay.
the narrative
Should probably
is-
update that.
oh, yeah. It's still a work in progress as far as some of
Yeah.
the verbiage, and I think there's even.
I mean, once you scroll down below that, it does have this week's results and since June 12th, so.
And if anybody comes across any little things like that that need an update, feel free to shoot them out to me in an email, and I can make those revisions pretty quick. So.
Great.
And then our third item on the agenda was the shoreline restoration plan. And one of our members of the committee was in Amsterdam and happened to miss the bus and the boat. And walking home, saw these floating islands of plants, hydroponic, along the channels in Amsterdam. So I took pictures and I talked to people. Oh, that member took pictures and talked to people. And it's kind of a demonstration project that we're going to work on. We'll put one,
cool.
yeah. And then in the winter, we'll tuck it in the boat slip and we'll bring it out and see what grows, see what doesn't grow, hit and miss, figure it out, get 3 plants that are doing well, and then maybe mass produce.
That's
Figure-
cool. I
yeah.
saw that in Victoria, Canada.
Yeah, well, Amsterdam's big on it, and we just couldn't believe it, that, wow, this is neat. And then they had lilies, non-invasive lilies, between the floating islands and their property along the canal. And it was really just beautiful, where it would have been just walls before and water. So that's a possibility, but what we're trying to do is explore many different ways of approaching how to reduce the nutrient load, how to beautify, how to get to our 20% of greenery on the periphery of Devil's Lake, and this might work. We don't know. We'll see.
Thank you.
Yep.
I'd like to.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to be involved in that if you have any kind of starts that you're bringing in or whatever. I've got some real calm water that would be
Okay, for a
favorable
nursery
that.
for us?
You betcha.
Okay.
Oh, and
And
my
I think-
plants are free to anybody that wants to come dig them. I'll just throw that
Okay,
out.
In the
yeah, and
canal.
I talked to Julie about that, but she was busy, so we'll arrange something with Julie to let us in, or we'll go in by boat and
Thank
see
you.
what grows and what might go hydroponic for these
Sure,
islands.
yeah.
Yeah, and the hydroponic island is, we would have to protect it from the grass carp, but they would trim, whatever went through the grid down below, but they'll float and eat the nutrients. Yeah, so
Cool.
it's a possibility, but we'll see how it works.
Yeah, it'd be a fun project.
Yeah.
Well, can I mention one other thing? Actually, I was able to see the pictures at dinner tonight, and I'll forward those to the board.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd really like to see on our website these pictures, because I think it's very progressive. It's something that we can do a sampling in the lake, and, you know, this kind of reverts back. We have a couple people, members on this committee especially, that have done a lot of work. You know, Jack had done a lot of work, Jack Strayer, regarding the planning. And I think the key to the planning in the lake really is to do a couple pilot projects with different plants to see what does work and what doesn't work. I don't think we're going to have a quick fix that's overnight. And I think when we roll out planning around the lake, we want to ensure that we know that the plants work for the lake.
Well, and I also think that we need, you know, to have different solutions for different people, because everybody likes a little bit a different type of landscaping, and that's going to be true for their lake frontage as well. And so, well, some people, you know, might like one type of plantings, other people may not care for that. And so if we could come up with, you know, numerous things that would
Options,
accomplish.
yes, because the ones that just have a wall there that the waves hit.
Right.
These could be floated in the summer.
Right,
you know.
which is what I have, and so it's like, okay, well, what do I do in front of my wall to help?
Right.
And so this might be a great option.
Well, and these plantings that I was looking at, they could be, you know, 4 by 8 compartmentalized plantings that you can move as buffers or whatever. But the whole theory is to end up continuing working on, you know, the oxygen in the lake, the nutrient load and everything. So I'm
And
excited.
some plants where they won't grow, like Kent found the ones that you.
That was my next question
Yes.
is,
This
do you have
this
an
might
update
be
for
a
us on your
solution here.
success or failure?
Well, you know, it's been a year now.
Yeah.
And I talked with Brad Johnson of the Army Corps of Engineers yesterday, I guess it was. And,
Oh, wow.
told him verbally what the progress has been. You know, last year we planted between the water and on the shoreline about 3 to 5 feet of shoreline. We planted somewhere between 800 and 900 plants.
3 to 5 feet deep,
Deep
but
on shoreline, and then in the water.
60
we-
feet long?
200 feet.
Oh, 200 feet.
200
okay.
feet long, and the shoreline plants have done wonderfully.
Okay.
And they've done everything we expect them to do. They look great. The Oster dogwood, the grasses, all the natives, they've done extremely well. The plants in the water have done poorly, and we probably had 450 of those, and I would say there's less than 20 that have survived. And so, you know, that's been discouraging, but we're supposed to monitor our project for about 5 years and produce a report. We have it fenced off, and so the grass carp haven't got in. And, you know, Brad was saying that we'll maybe give it another year or two and see if any of those roots are still alive, and they just haven't produced anything yet. So that's the plan, to continue to do that. But, you know, from our initial evaluation of all the effort and the 19 or so volunteers that we had, the terrestrial plantings are very successful. The water plantings have been very less than successful, to put it mildly. Have been discouraging.
So we want to get the word out to the homeowners on the successes.
Right.
And then have alternatives for in the water planting, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure,
Great
thank
report.
All right. Next, Josh, you want to give us a report on projects?
Absolutely. We've been very busy at the district with our projects recently. Bill and I today, this morning, took the large mobile aerator, the Airstream unit, from Blue Heron Landing, where it was at, to the new test site over near Pat Dooling's house. Everything's installed and waiting for us to turn it on there. I went over last week and started taking measurements, sediment depth, and some of the water quality with our new instrument. So we've got a decent baseline to go there, and we'll be turning that on most likely, I'm guessing, early part of next week. As soon as we get over there and get it kicked on. So that will be our new test site there, and what the purpose of that one is the Horseshoe Bay area is historically very deep and very thick in those softer sediments, and I went over there with the sludge judge and poked a few holes, and unfortunately I didn't get any quantifiable results. I might have to modify that a little bit, but I did notice that it was much softer than even where it was over at Blue Heron Landing where we had it. So I think that's going to be a great little test pilot area for it to go there as well. There are some invasive like yellow lilies and things over there as well, so we'll kind of see if that water movement has any effect on those undesirable plants in that area as well. So we will be considering our next location after this one, and we'll be having a conversation about whether or not we want to retain that equipment permanently for the district between now and the next board meeting. So,
Yeah, I think that Josh and I had a discussion prior to the meeting, and I think our rental is up the end of September with that unit, and so probably at our next board meeting we need to make a decision. Do we want to send it back? Do we want to purchase it? And Josh is going to come up with those numbers for us. Currently, I think the cost of getting electricity so that we can run it is about $750 per placement, and then it costs about $250 a month to run it electrically. So we have some hard costs up front. If we decide to move it around the lake and then move it back to areas we've already have electricity established, then we've already absorbed those costs. But I think next meeting we need to make a decision on whether we want to decide to purchase that.
Do you think 3 weeks in this location is good enough? I mean, could we maybe push that decision to the September meeting, since it doesn't have to be back until the end of September?
Yeah,
To get, I mean, at
I
least
guess-
a month of data
I guess,
from Horseshoe
Josh,
Bay?
you could talk to John, say, hey, when do we have to let you know about this? And
It seemed like he was fairly flexible.
yeah, I can tell you right now, John is going to be he's been great to us as far as working on these projects with the equipment especially. And if we need a little bit of buffer time on another side of that, I'm sure that he'll be agreeable. So if you want to have it in that September meeting as a board, let me know.
I'm kind of excited to see I think Horseshoe Bay is the prime location to see if this machine does what we want it to do.
Yeah, it's a little more condensed there as far as where the sides of the lake are and just the amount of water inflow. So we're going to get kind of a different effect and
Well,
see
and
what
I
else
think
it can
it's,
do.
I mean, in my opinion anyhow, in combination with an aeration system, this machine will get into little fingers like that where we won't have an aeration system working and be able to help those areas of the lake that may or may not get much benefit, from an aeration system.
That's a good point, and we haven't even begun to test, all the different possibilities we may have for this equipment. There may
Right.
be some vegetation applications of that regard. There may be other water movement areas, like in some of the smaller canals and things up near the mouth of the river that we can use it for, that we just haven't had the time because it takes time to test these spots to get it around to. So.
I'm really interested also to get it to the barbecue place.
Vivian's.
Vivian's, and
Yeah.
see if maybe we can move some sand with it.
Yeah, and
Without having to dredge.
We've been kind of having discussions in those areas, and like I said, those canals and some of those spots there, we may have some benefit that we haven't realized from it yet. So, and given the fact that the cost of ownership is very low to the district, it's very simple equipment, so maintenance should not be very high. John
Does it
Bax
seem like
is-
it's running well, Bill, after what, we've had it for 8 weeks?
It's, as soon as you plug it in, I think it makes substantial difference because it's moving about 1 million gallons an hour for as long as it's plugged in. So in the
Have you
8
had
weeks,
any maintenance issues since we plugged it in?
not anything other than maybe a few lily roots. Somebody was doing some excavating near it and Yeah, it got a little plugged up, but other than that, nothing. We didn't have any debris, no sticks, no marine hazard, nothing but improved results after 2 weeks.
Great.
And yeah, if anybody wants to have a story, then Mr. Walker could testify to that fact as far as water quality and moving oxygen into the sediment levels and working the sediment levels down to a noticeable difference. So hopefully at Dooling's, in that smaller canal, it'll turn that canal over a few times a day, and you should see a measurable difference in water quality.
Great.
In August or September, it seems like the smell gets really bad in that area.
Terrible.
It's really interesting to see it.
Yeah, it's the northwest wind blows over the top of that particular arm just stagnates, and it's almost, it's
We've had
pretty.
people report sewer spills in there, and you go by, and it's just dead muck, and oh man, does it smell bad.
So, and as Kent mentioned, having that infrastructure installed, if these areas come back next year and it starts smelling bad again next year, then we can skip that $750 hookup phase and just pay a monthly electrical cost.
Sure.
And have it there and ready to go.
Well, the other advantage of having it where it is right now is it coming into the warmer part of the season, that being the worst the odor emitting area.
Yeah.
We'll see the big difference in the water turnover, whether or not it becomes pungent or not.
It's got to help.
Yeah. Yeah, I
that
mean,
much water movement.
water movement and adding oxygen are two major components of that equipment. That's obviously two things that we need in parts of the lake, so.
Cool.
Our next update will be on the aeration project, the large whole lake aeration project itself. We've made a substantial amount of progress in this in our recent talks through the board and our sessions as to the type and effectiveness of the system that we want to pursue. Currently, before we move on to the pre-permitting phase, which we are poised and ready to do, we are evaluating locations on Sand Point area for possible compressor location from the systems that we're currently in talks about having installed. Once we get through that, and I unfortunately I don't have a time frame on how long it's going to take to identify that, because once we identify that location, we'll have to have some type of property agreement that says we can access it over such period of time, and et cetera, so we can care for the equipment the district has out there. I don't anticipate any really big problems. I have a few things to follow up with next week with the county. The unimproved boat ramp has been brought to my attention as a possible location for that as well. County property, I believe. I'm going to look into that. Sandpoint Park is also another location where there's been some concerns over the potential noise that the compressor might make. So once that location gets locked down, and like I said, we're actively working on it, we can move on to John or whomever we're going to have work on this system and put that plan together, and then we'll go to the permitting phase. That's what the Corps wants, is they want, we need X amount of piping. Well, how many diffusers are you going to have on? Well, 150 or 80 is a big difference to them, because they're going to look up, 24 inches by 24 inches times however many, and that may put us over or under some threshold where we may not have to permit as much, or we may need to permit more. But we just unfortunately won't know until we get more of the nuts and bolts together on this plan, which we're very close. And like I said, we're making great progress.
Josh, after our conversation today, I was thinking about the compressor station and, thinking, oh, would I want that in my backyard, which is a typical thing of everybody wants an aeration system, but nobody wants a compressor house in their backyard, which is understandable. One of the things I was thinking about it is we've been given some parameters of what the decibel output would be, and I'm pretty sure that you can get your hands on an apparatus that you can set a decibel output and put it in a location so that we could, have it there for a couple of days and get feedback from the neighbors of that's acceptable or it's absolutely not acceptable.
Yeah.
And I think that would be really fair to our homeowners to do that too before we invest funds, and it would lower their anxiety, or it would help us to know that, nope, that's not a good location and it's not an acceptable amount of output.
And I think that in our talks with some of the different providers, and John in particular, he's approached that, and he has a few YouTube videos out in relation to his Lake Savers company that kind of illustrates exactly what you're talking about. He stands there and he has a conversation with somebody, and you can hear him as clearly
until
as I
it's,
can.
in the still of the night.
Okay.
when
So you
your
mean like an
windows-
ambient on-site?
No, yeah, an actual something, because I'm pretty sure you can get an apparatus, and where we would find it, I don't know, but and set it to a certain decibel. If they say it's going to be 100 decibel output, and I'm pulling numbers out of my head, we could set that up and have it there so that when you're in bed and your windows are open, is that acceptable?
I bet you there's an app for that, Tina.
Sure. We'll go set our phone down.
But no, I get what you're saying. Go take like a baseline ambient sound measurement without anything running there, see where it's at, and then see what
Set this
decibels
apparatus
put out.
up at whatever output the decibel we say it's going to be when it's inside of whatever it's going to be inside of, and set it up and leave it there for a couple of nights, and then say, hey, what did you think?
So find like one of those little clanking monkeys or something that puts out
Well,
the right decibels. and set
I
it
mean,
out
it's
there.
like it's like a
Yeah.
sound machine is
Yeah,
what it is.
that we could put it out there and see if there are any
Well, no, a
complaints or
decibel
any
meter
issues or
measures the
any-
decibel. We're looking for the thing that makes the noise, that you can actually set
Yeah.
that decibel.
a sound
of noise.
generator.
So we're looking for the
no.
generator
No.
to set that decibel. And
Okay.
I know you can get those. I just don't know where.
I will look. I don't think that's going to be a huge issue to do. That's probably something pretty cost effective too. Not
Well,
pricey.
I mean, we need it for a few days,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe a couple of days and we're done, because they're like, yeah, we didn't hear it at all. And maybe we need to move it somewhere else and try it again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think that's a great idea. I'll look at whatever equipment we might be able to rent or procure to make that happen. So
I think Tucci would have that information available, what the noise levels are. And then
He
we
doesn't.
we can mimic that.
Yeah, he has the decibel output, and you can buy sound generators and set that exact decibel.
yeah. I mean, they put them in Volkswagens to make the engine sound. Yeah, we can figure that out.
Yeah.
All right, if there's no more questions on that. Our brings me to our website report. Our
So
numbers.
I do have a question. What is our next step with John? It's the compressor location.
That's it. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we get that. He's agreed to give us another plan based on those exact locations, so we can get a better handle on the piping run. Since it's going to be not a single trunk line, and we're looking at the multiple home runs to each
Okay.
zone. So then the location became a lot more of an important component in the plan as we were looking farther south, and that was an option. But given this more cost-effective system design, we have to tighten up that margin a little bit as
Right.
far as the location. So.
Okay.
Yeah, is this the only option that we have, or is there another option?
For this exact
Placement,
type of system
yeah.
replacement, placement, we're pretty locked in on this because this is also according to the plan from our engineers and designers whom we employed to do the study previously, and they've said the deepest portion of the lake is our most bang for the buck and is going to be our highest efficiency as far as this system, especially the initial one that we want to have installed. So that central portion that runs up that middle third of the lake is really our area of concern. And to furthermore put a pin in that, the middle of that third
Right.
part of the lake. So
And how many units has he proposed? 20?
we have looked at 24, give or take, on either side is what we were talking
So
about.
24 by 24 squares on the bottom with associated airline.
Correct.
Okay. Just curious to know if we had an option.
Yeah,
If-
yeah, and we have some other ones here and there, and as information comes in, we'll be dynamic as we can with them, of course. But he's even mentioned we can go a little north of that 24, so it may end up being 28. We have a few options in there, so
Thank you.
no problem. Good on the aeration system. All right. We'll move on over to the website report. I had the update up this month, and it is looking good. We are on the rise once again for our number of hits and files and pages looked at. So people are still using that as a tool. And I'm seeing some little bumps here. The more time that I have available to kind of get some things streamlined, I think people are starting to use that as a go-to resource for the lake information and things like we want. So it's going to be a great tool in the upcoming months, too, to be able to get information out to all the residents. That is the wrap-up of my projects report for this evening. There's one other thing that's not related to projects I just wanted to mention. Kent Hanrahan, which is an outstanding gentleman that works there and volunteers for the support group in Oregon Coast Community College, has lived around here forever, does not live on the lake, but he did give us a substantial donation to DLWID and thanked us all for all the hard work that we've done. So just wanted to let everybody know that people notice.
And a candy every day.
Yes, and the best candy you can imagine. A lot of Smarties. He's worth like 5 cents at least.
Very nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
We should write him a thank you letter from the board, probably.
Yes.
Hanrahan.
Yeah. Kent.
Yep.
He wanders up and down the halls of the community college and spreads good cheer. I don't know, honestly.
He helps facilitate a lot of people getting a college education. For example, a couple weeks ago, he was helping a single mom with 2 kids chase down some scholarships so she could start taking some classes at the community college. So he's
a great guy.
Good facilitator for people.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. I guess we have new business now. Safe deposit box,
We have the safe deposit box all wrapped up. I think we pretty much did that before the meeting for the signatures. All that amounts to is we're taking the former lake manager's name off the safe deposit box, putting my name on. We just need a quick discussion, so we have it in the minutes from the board agreeing to that, and then I will have access as a signer to the safe deposit box.
I agree.
I think we've had a safety deposit box. We're not sure what's in it completely.
I'll retire.
And
We'll find out. You may never see me again.
in order to find out what's in it, we have to get Josh to be a signer for it. So with board approval, we'll do that. And then depending on what's in it, because we don't know, nobody on the board has authority to access it, then we'll make a decision. I think we have to go ahead and pay for another year, but once we find out what's in it, do we really need one or not, we'll be able to determine from there. So I would move that we give Josh the authority to access our safety deposit box. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Josh, you have approval. Go get what's in it.
Thank you. I'll find out and let you know.
Lastly, under new business, we have a new contract up for our bookkeeper. And Josh, we've made some adjustments to that. Do you want to just briefly go over that?
Yeah, really, the contract stays mostly the same as it was, I believe, about a year ago.
Yes.
When Teresa came on. The main changes here are on page 3, communication with auditing accounting firm, and this just added in some language that says that our contracted bookkeeper, which would be Teresa at this point, will interface with our accounting firm, which would be Grimstat, whom we employ to do audits and financial reviews annually, that she work with them and get them the information she needs necessary and any kind of communication to make those audits complete. The other portion in here is just added that our bookkeeper contractor shall also attend budget committee meetings, of which we have at least one that's open to the public every year, and I plan on setting a quarterly meeting is what I'm looking at now to get the budget committee meeting and or members and or treasurer manager together, just so we can be all on the same page with finances as far as what we have available, projects we have upcoming, account draws that we're going to be planning on in the next near future. So that is really the only major changes to that I'm aware of.
Did she agree to that?
She did, yeah. She said that was fine. The only thing she said that she may want to change a little bit of language on was a number for the amount of budget meetings, and I told her verbally that we would not need her for more than 4 meetings in a year. That would certainly cover the bookkeeping position of things. So, like I said, that's the only takeaway she had from it. So.
She does a great job.
Yeah, she does. Do appreciate the large amount of time she puts into that. A lot of communication with me as well, so.
Given that, I move that we enter into a contract with Teresa with the appropriate changes to continue her services as bookkeeping for the next year.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Yes, and I know that the work Teresa does is greatly appreciated. I get to see her about once a week. So, given that, let's see. Do we have any non-agenda items from the board? Do we have any additional comments from citizens on agenda or non-agenda items? In that we have none.
I do have one more
You
comment.
do? Oh, I'm sorry.
Just one more thing.
Just
I
one
wanted
more
to say welcome to the new board members once again, and I appreciate your service and willingness to participate in our organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Thank you all for coming, and remember, we have a sewer committee meeting tomorrow at Oregon Coast Community College, Lincoln campus at 4:30. Additionally, on the 29th, we have a sewer informational workshop on the 29th at 10:30 at Oregon Coast Community College, room 108. Hope you, if you desire to come and attend. Thank you very much.
Good meeting.
And Steve, do you have yours?